Hey guys, I had a few problems with this video since the official Mr. Robot channel uploaded a bunch of clips from the episode. This caused my video to get blocked for playmatch violations. It's an automatic system, so even though it falls most likely under fair use for me to use clips in a review, I just decided to pull out the volume for the scene so I don't have to wait for an appeal or redo the whole thing from the beginning. In the future I'll figure out something, and whether it's even useful to have clips or not, since with this one, I lost 3 days of having it blocked worldwide, and that's not good for me. So I hope this won't take away from the video too much, but I wanted to get something out before the next episode is released. Hey guys, it's Pete, and another Mr. Robot episode is come and gone. It's another solid effort, and we get some more insight and answers to some really big questions this time. So this will be my Season 2, Episode 4 recap and review, and let's get right into it. We start off with a flashback to Elliot's apartment. It's actually a tease because it looks similar to the knocking scene at the end of last season, but it turns out to be a different knock on the door this time. So while it isn't the answer we've been looking for, we do get to see how things got rolling with the 5-9 hack in the first place. Darlene shows up out of the blue, and it seems like Elliot doesn't want her there, or at the very least he isn't interested in seeing her. As he's trying to brush her off, she says the title of the episode, which is Init 1. This is a Linux command that basically closes off a system to a single user access. She mentions she wouldn't use that term if she didn't mean it, and tells him that she really needs him to hang out with her. The two get comfortable and start watching an old movie from their childhood, the Careful Massacre of the Bourgeois. We find out that this is where F Society mask comes from, the one that Darlene was wearing when she came to the door, and it obscures a really important part of the scene at the same time. The mask's origin and the movie are really cool, but what stands out to me most about this is we see a side of Elliot we've never seen before. Despite his reluctance at first, we find out that he really cares for Darlene, and has a traditional brother-sister protective sort of relationship. Despite all of his loneliness and social awkwardness, at least when it comes to Darlene, he can step outside of himself somewhat. He asks her if she's still having panic attacks, and we find out how he ended up seeing Krista in the first place. He tells the story of his last job where he was working, and he was basically discovering all the holes in his employer's platform. His job was to keep going until it was hacker proof, and he says they were not that good, so he was keeping all of his co-workers at the office, and they were trying to go home for a holiday weekend. They end up locking him in the server room where he falls asleep after a few hours, and when he wakes up, all of the servers are destroyed. He doesn't remember doing it, and when he goes to court, the judge sends him to therapy for anger management. She asks him about their mother, which leads to a short discussion about their father and how Darlene wishes she could remember him better. Elliot goes to the closet and pulls out the Mr. Robot jacket to show her. She asks him to put on the mask from the movie, and we watch as he lays out the plan for. So I had the clip in this section, but the video got flagged for play match, which I guess that means that the background music is causing a copyright problem from the automatic checker, and since I don't know how long it'll take to dispute and whatever, I just pulled it out. So in the scene, Elliot puts the jacket on with the mask and says maybe he should take the job at Allsafe so that he can become a Trojan horse. It's interesting because he lays out the hack exactly as it goes down, and he stresses at the end that the hack won't be that hard, the actual hacking part, but the hard part will be after. He says that they'll have to continue so that they destroy the credibility of E-Corp long after the actual hack happens. At the end there, we get an insight into what Darlene has been up to in Season 2, and overall we get an idea of just how coherently the initial plan was laid out by Elliot. It really puts into perspective how his mental state has deteriorated over the time we got to know him while he was, working at Allsafe. We get back to present time, and Darlene has come to visit Elliot at their mother's house. It appears she wants to tell him about Romero, but instead he tries to talk her out of continuing the plan. She's a little worried about his mental state, so she just never brings up the fact that Romero had been killed. He tells her that, what she's doing is too dangerous, and they more or less go back and forth without either side backing down. Again, we see this loving and caring side of each character, which was unnoticeable throughout the first season. Kind of the big thing here is that she tells them they have something big planned for the bailout vote in DC, which is coming up. That would be the big bailout for the banks where their hack was concerned. And Elliot says they're on the other side of something they never signed up for. At this point, she loses her patience, reminds him of what he said in the beginning, and he tells her that it wasn't him that said those things, that it was Mr. Robot. The conversation ends with Elliot wondering what she is keeping from him, and Darlene saying that maybe she needs Mr. Robot, not Elliot after all. Dom is at the arcade with a lot of FBI agents. We find out the connection to the FBI list that she had, photographed at Romero's in her phone when she tells another agent that on each page was the name of one agent from the New York office that interviewed Gideon. Inside the arcade, she's met with a bunch of skepticism by the other officers that she's talking to about the connection to the hack. When asked what hard evidence she has uncovered, she presents a shell casing that they found behind the duck hunt type game. I think it was called Mallet Hunter. We see that Joanna is at the parking lot where Elliot woke up in Tyrell's car after his 3-day blackout post-hack. She has the attendant in the car and he looks spooked about being interviewed repeatedly by law enforcement. The scene's a little bit baffling to me for a couple reasons, and it raises some questions. First, why does this guy have information to hide? What does he know about the 3 days that we don't? And why is it worth so much for Joanna to pay him and go out and personally reassure him that there's nothing to worry about? Second, what role does the security detail play with Joanna at this point? Were they privately hired by the Wellicks in the first place? I was under the impression during season 1 that they worked for E-Corp, but in their conversation, we find out she is running out of money because her husband's severance package hasn't come through. So other than the agent's name, which I know is Mr. Sutherland, I can't really find too much out about this guy, let alone who he actually works for. Let me know in the comments if you have any info on him and who you think he works for or what his deal is. We get a quick shot of Angela outside the E-Corp office listening to the positive affirmations on her headphones. We see the two guys from the dinner that she had with Price being escorted out in handcuffs while the voice in her headphones says, "All my dreams are coming true right now." We cut to Elliot and Ray playing chess at his office. Ray beats Elliot and tells him he needs to work on his game. When he tries to start over, Ray tells him instead of repeating his mistakes to take the board home and play himself, to practice. They go back and forth, which leads Ray to say that Elliot needs to unburden himself, and that anything he tells him will stay inside this room. This prompts an appearance from Mr. Robot, who threatens to jump off a building if Elliot does any such thing. For the first time, I'm not really sure if Ray is trustworthy. They are definitely painting him in that light, but given his shady dealings, it's a little bit hard to tell if he's trying to get some leverage against Elliot so that he can get him to help out with his Bitcoin problem. In the end, Elliot doesn't tell him about the hack, and he says that Elliot needs a chessboard more than he realized. Angela is in another bar talking to the lawyer from the Washington Township lawsuit, and there's a news report about the E-Corp insider trading arrest playing in the background. We find out the lawyer played a part in having them arrested, and Angela lays out what she thinks Price is up to with her. She says he is creating leverage and says they need to look over the arrangement or the agreement drafts to find out what is missing. Back at Elliot's room, Mr. Robot challenges him to a winner-take-all match of chess. The stakes are whoever wins gets to take over and do whatever they want completely. If Elliot wins, he can confess and unburden himself, but if Mr. Robot wins, he will take over and Elliot will exist in complete nothingness. It is an interesting proposition, as nothingness is a sort of relief, but the price that he has to pay is incredibly high. Elliot is then in Krista's office thinking about taking the offer. When she asks him if Mr. Robot is the only person he interacts with, he lies and says yes. Krista asks to talk to Mr. Robot, and this leads Elliot to pouring out the details of just how unraveled his mind is. She tells him the game he is thinking about playing is very dangerous because he is talking about destroying a part of himself. Basically, whether he likes it or not, that's part of who he is. It's a great observation, but Elliot isn't willing to accept it. He acknowledges the existence of what's going on, but devolves into a rant about how we edit everything anyways and we always try to present a better version of ourselves. This takes us right into a conversation over the phone between Whiterose and Philip Price. Whiterose is applying makeup, and it's notable that she uses her male voice while talking to Price but switches to the feminine one when she talks to her partner. There's so much information that comes out in this short scene that it's almost too much to go into without donning like a full-on tinfoil hat. But basically, it starts off with Whiterose asking him why he would put so much faith in her, a woman who we assume must be Angela because of the fact that that's the person that he has regular interaction with. The only other candidate would be Darlene, but Whiterose actually has more access to get to her through Cisco, so I doubt that Price would be mentioning that or even really knows who Darlene is. Whiterose is impatient for whatever they are plotting to come together, and Price reminds her that he is taking care of things, but it will take time. The burning of Rome is mentioned again, then this could be an indication that Price was behind the events of the hack all along, But under closer inspection, the theory doesn't really pass muster because it is much more likely that Price is doing what powerful people often do in times of uncertainty and unrest. They profit and they use the situation to make changes that increase their power. There is mention of the president and the UN and a plant that can't be shut down. And this, I think, is pretty telling about why they're working together, but it's not really clear what it is. And I can't get completely into the history of like finance and what happened after World War I and how that affected things in the American banking system in this video, because it would just be another video on its own. But it is kind of possible that the last episode where we saw that assassination of Ferdinand that he has hanging in his office, that might be a pretty good clue as to what this allegiance between the Dark Army and E-Corp is all about. Whiterose hangs up when Price says things will take time and talks with her partner. She mentions an e-coin strategy and asks how long their stage 2 will take. We find out it is going to be 6 months minimum and that Whiterose is going to have to be patient, which she obviously doesn't like. The e-coin strategy is a little hard to speculate on, but I think it makes a lot of sense that if the dollar is destroyed due to the hack, cryptocurrency would be a very profitable enterprise. Plus, we know that Ray is involved in Bitcoin for some reason or another, and we also caught a glimpse of this shot of an e-coin and Bitcoin sign next to each other in Dom's first scene. Her partner also shows her a classified FBI report from Dom about finding the arcade. It wasn't sent by Dom. It was just they came across it one way or the other. When you zoom in, it doesn't have much more information than we already know, but Whiterose tells his partner to look into it and find out what they know. Joanna has made her way into Scott Knowles' apartment and she wants Tyrell's severance package. Knowles is pounding wine and says he wants to find the person who killed his wife. She offers to help him out by testifying in a way that will help expose Tyrell as the killer, but Knowles stands firm and says that her baby deserves nothing. Darlene is getting off the subway and we see that her paranoia is getting worse. She sees men following her and we don't know if they're real or not. As she's walking, Cisco bumps into her wearing one of the Bourgeois masks and grabs her phone and destroys it. He then tells her to meet him up the street at a bar. They sit down at a place called the Looking Glass, which is an homage to Alice in Wonderland, and he tells her that the FBI found the arcade. He says the Dark Army wasn't behind the killing of Romero as far as he knows, and they end up having sex in the bathroom. When they finish up, he tells her there's more. There's a secret surveillance project called Operation Berenstain, and that he doesn't know if they know who they are or not. He tells her she needs to stop being a hard ass and just let him help her. As a sidebar here, Berenstain is a word connected to an alternate reality theory that popped up online in the past couple years. Google the Mandela effect if you want to read about it. It's definitely tripped out if you have some time to kill. Leon and Elliot are back at the diner, and it seems like Leon is finished up with Seinfeld. He notices Elliot is preoccupied with the chessboard on the table and asks him if he wants to play. This leads to this sort of philosophical discussion where he asks Elliot if he dreams. Leon asks what the game is for, as in if it isn't who you're playing that is important, then why are you playing? If it's not the who, it's the why. He finds out that Elliot is playing for his existence. He asks him if he really wants to be here, and saying right now, and not in the physical sense, but in the cosmic sense. Leon talks about existence and how it can be good or bad, and that's basically up to us. He also makes the point that you have to find out the future you were fighting for when Elliot asks him, how does he know if he wants to be here or not? It's Joey Badass's first really good serious scene. I mean, obviously the Seinfeld scenes were hilarious, but it just kind of leaves me wondering more, like, how did Elliot come to know this guy in the first place? I haven't seen really any good theories about where Leon came from. Most of them are pretty far-fetched, so hopefully we'll be able to find out where he came from and where his storyline is going in the future episodes, because he's definitely with Elliot all the time, so he has a unique point of view, and it's definitely possible that he's known Elliot for a long time, even if he doesn't know what he's been up to with the hack and everything else. Elliot seems genuinely perplexed by this idea, and it changes the way he looks at the idea of taking on Mr. Robot in the game. We get another Joanna scene where we find out that she actually has feelings for the boy toy type we met in a couple episodes back. She says he will never be able to give her anything that she wants in life, but somehow that this is the reason why she loves him. Then we cut straight to Elliot in bed thinking about what his dream would be. It's a Raising Arizona-esque scene where we envision the future he imagines, and it's a very un-Elliot kind of future. But I guess I would say that it's un-Elliot in a good way. This sequence is really interesting because before this, it's hard to know if these are the kinds of things Elliot wants or not. To be able to show affection to those he cares about, to see them happy. On a certain level, all people want those things. But he lays them out pretty clearly, and there isn't much doubt, at least not in the dream. The things he dreams of aren't about himself. They're more like solutions to a socially awkward nature. He talks about being what most people would consider normal in the way he interacts with the people that are close to him. I guess there's hope in it, which would be what he needs at this point. I mean, it's not overly complex or unrealistic. It's something that you can work towards and something that he could play for, something human that exists in real life, like in the real world away from the keyboard. So it's an effective scene. I like the overlay of the music, and I like the way that he sort of sorts through the different parts of it as he goes. Also, other than the building falling in the background, I mean, there's nothing that is reflective of what they were trying to do necessarily with the hack either. It's all human, and it's all people that, we already know, not the effects of culture or society. So let me know in the comments what you think. Is this the kind of stuff that you thought that he was going to come up with, or do you think this was a little bit out of left field? One of the first things that stands out about that is that he hugs back in the last part when he's talking about amends, which is weird since we know he doesn't like being touched. And we see this full shot at the table at the end with most of the people we've seen him interact with. Obviously, Romero and Gideon aren't there for good reason, but it also makes some sense that we don't see Mr. Robot or Krista at the table either. There is a seat reserved for us though, which is nice, and Querty the fish is on the table. But as much as I was expecting it, we didn't see Flipper show up at the end. We see the E-Corp building fall in the background while everyone at the table cheers. In bed, Elliot realizes this is the future he always wanted, and he would very much like to fight for it. The chess match begins, and we find out that what I think we already all knew. There is no winner. After the third stalemate, which Elliot points out to us is statistically impossible, it becomes clear that neither side can win out over the other. Mr. Robot says it's a sign that he's there for a reason, but Elliot isn't ready to buy into that yet. We see Angela approach Price to make a little power play. She wants her boss's job and a better office. She feels like she deserves all this because she found a pattern that exposes what Price is actually after. She thinks that they don't want a third party to inspect the Washington Township plant. She has some influence over what they do in the class action suit, so she figures she could make this happen and get that other stuff as a reward. He says that she's impressive while at the same time saying that this is all in her head. He makes mention that it's always good to dream or have dreams, but at the same time never says that she's wrong. Next we see Elliot. He's on the phone again, and this time Darlene is begging him for help. She tells him they might be owned and that she needs him to get on IRC. He says he doesn't have access, and she tells him to figure it out. Before the conversation ends, he asks her if she was serious about Mr. Robot instead of him, and she says that she only needs Elliot. He heads over to Ray's and decides to help him out with his computer problem so that he can end up getting online. Ray is pleasantly surprised that he changed his mind and sets him up to get started. Before he hands over the keyboard though, he tells Elliot about prophets that also heard voices, and says that it could be divinity if he lets it. Ray gives him a folder from the old IT guy, and Elliot says he'll be able to do the migration. Ray tells him that his online business is really important to him, and that he's a private guy. He stresses that he needs Elliot to not look anywhere he doesn't need to. He also has the guy who acted as his muscle when we saw him before come in to watch him as he works. All this doesn't look good, but Elliot decides to go ahead because of Darlene. Not unsurprisingly, as soon as he gets on the computer, he contacts Darlene, and she lays out the fact that there's an operation, that Romero dies. We talked about Berenstain earlier, and that they found the arcade. So not new information for us, but new information for Elliot. Then he basically goes through the thing that he needs to, protect his sister. His sister's in trouble. They're getting closed in on. And he pulls up this article about them changing from BlackBerry to Android. And then Mr. Robot asks him what he's doing. He says he's going to hack the FBI. So pretty straightforward, but a cool scene just the same. So there we have another strong ending to another strong episode. A couple of Easter eggs to point out. You can actually watch the Careful Massacre of the Bourgeoisie on the USA Network's website. And if you type in the IP address that you see Elliot put into the IRC there, it'll connect you to what looks like the Gentleman channel. Type in the exact same things Darlene did, and Elliot's response will have another line added to it at the end that you see on the screen. I didn't come up with this myself. I saw it on Reddit, but and I don't actually want to give away what it says, but it goes along with the closing scene, and like it doesn't give away some big secret. It's just kind of cool that they set that up and you can actually do that. I'm not sure if there's anything else you can do on there, like if you type in different commands or not, but I thought that was pretty cool. Overall, I would say they moved away from the idea of loneliness some to the idea of dreams. So perhaps dreams and what a person is willing to fight for is what the answer to Elliot's problem will be, or maybe it's just another part of the journey on the way. I was a little bit bummed we didn't get more Dom stuff in this episode, but the Whiterose scene definitely made up for it, and I'm sure that there'll be a lot of Dom stuff in the next episode. I think it's a little early to tell exactly what Price's plans are. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that it has something to do with the power play that involves currency, some sort of way that, he's going to be in a much stronger position than he was before the hack. But it's hard to say who's going to end up on top and if everything's going to work out and exactly what will be what at the end of the day. One thing's for sure, though, for now it seems that F Society's dream of making the world a better place is definitely nowhere near playing out how they wanted it to. Once again, I'm in awe on just how much, the director, producer, writer, showrunner, Sam Esmail packs into each episode. These extra long episodes are awesome, and the amount of Easter eggs is just way over the top. The show is interactive, like on a different level than anything I can think of, and if there wasn't so much going on story-wise, I would spend a lot more time talking about some of those things. Who knows, maybe in the future, if these episode videos pick up a little bit as far as people watching them, I'll think about doing extra bonus videos during the week. So let me know what you think in the comments about the episode. What do you think Price and Whiterose are up to? Do you think Angela is getting played, or if she's actually holding her own? Also, do you think he's a good guy? Do you think Elliot can trust him, or do you think there's more to his character under the surface that we haven't seen come out yet? Please like the video and subscribe to my channel. I really enjoy doing these episode breakdowns, and I want to continue, and that support really helps out. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.